All right. And thank you, everyone. I think that was a great discussion we had, and we should go on with this topic. As I said before, right now, I'd like to get the report from the nominating committee that we set up at our last meeting. I know the members are here. Is one of you willing to give your report? Or do you want me to call on someone?
So I will give a report on the behalf of the committee. There were three of us on the committee. There was Dave Ewert and Dennis Marks and me. And so our charge was to nominate officers for the upcoming term. And I think that we're all very grateful to those who have agreed. The officers are president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. And we also nominated a webmaster because that's a very important part of the organization, actually. In talking with candidates for president and then vice president, I think there was a feeling among a number of people that they wish we sort of had co-presidents, that is, people working together. And we don't have that in our bylaws, but the people who agreed to be president and vice president have indicated that they want to work together as co-presidents. And of course, I think that's great. And so for president, we're nominating Mary Lynn McKay from Emory University, and as vice president, Missy Cody from Georgia State. Ann Richards has very graciously agreed to continue as secretary, and those of you who have seen her work know that's really great. I said I would continue as treasurer, and Carol Pope is going to continue as webmaster.
Thank you very much. That's a wonderful slate of officers. I know that they're here today, except for Missy. I've spoken to her. She's traveling to see her children, something that she had set up well in advance of our scheduling this meeting. She indicates her willingness to serve in the terms that you've outlined. So I think that's a wonderful slate of nominations. I'd like to open it up to the floor for volunteers and also for any other nominations. Well, hearing none, I suggest that we approve the slate of nominations by acclamation. And I certainly accept, let's see what we have.
Can we say I move that we accept the nominations set forth by the committee and get a second?
Second.
Oh. Well, all in favor, make some symbol or raise your physical hand. I accept. Okay. So those nominations are approved, and we have our officers. Now I'd like to move on in the agenda. We're going to have a brief update on the USG Retiree Council, and then we'll be sharing best practices. I know Dave Ewert has something that he wants to share with us during that part of the meeting. So Mitch, would you go ahead with your update?
Yeah, I'm Mitch Clifton. I'm chair of the USG Retiree Council, and we had a spring meeting back on April 1st, and there were a couple of issues that were brought up that I thought might interest you. One is that those of you that have an HRA and a year spending account, or a YSA, are familiar with a company called Aon. Well, Aon has been bought out by another company called A-Lite. And A-Lite has been working with the University of Southern Georgia for a number of years. So we should see very few changes to the way we're getting reimbursed for our health insurance. But on May 14th, all the terminology will change to A-Lite. So if you get information mailed to you regarding the HRA or the YSA, it will come from A-Lite rather than coming from Aon. The phone number that you used to call Aon will be the same phone number you'll use to call A-Lite. And there'll be a slight change to the URL for the website, but the old URL will redirect your request to the new URL. And the people you interacted with on the phone system, if you use that to manage your benefits, that will direct you to the same group of people under A-Lite as it did under Aon. So they're telling us that this is going to be almost a seamless change. Since I think that's the most important thing I had to tell you, let me stop now and ask if you have any questions concerning this change. Okay, so let's hope for the best. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we had a guest speaker, Stuart Rayfield, who's the interim executive vice chancellor for academic affairs. And one of the things she mentioned was that her office is making some changes to the process of post-tenure review, which is used by the University System of Georgia. And she mentioned that one of the changes that's being made to post-tenure review is that there's going to be, that one of the criteria is going to be student performance. And during the question and answer session that followed her presentation, Dennis Marks mentioned that the National AAUP has sanctioned University System of Georgia because of its changes in post-tenure review. And she mentioned that they're working with the AAUP and trying to get these sanctions lifted. And Dennis is very concerned, and many of us are concerned that the fact that we're being sanctioned nationally by the AAUP might make hiring new faculty in the system difficult. And Dr. Rayfield simply said that they're working very vigorously to try to get this sanction removed. Dennis, would you like to add anything on this topic? Because I think this is a very important topic.
Thank you, Mitch. Yeah, I think the key thing here is that the system policies no longer provide the protection of tenure for people who have had an unsatisfactory post-tenure review, and that needs to be restored. Dr. Rayfield seemed to think that because it hadn't been written into the policies of the individual institutions, it wasn't yet a problem. But it's significant that the system removed that, and I doubt very much that the individual institutions will explicitly reinforce tenure rights when the university system does not.
Dennis, excuse me, but I wanted to ask a clarification on that policy. My understanding was that that AAUP could not sanction a system, that systems aren't sanctioned, institutions are sanctioned. So how does this work?
The sanction is on the institution because that's where the policy was changed. And the AAUP certainly has sanctioned systems previously, including the University System of Georgia, when the governor was putting relatives into university system positions. And, you know, that historic case was a sanction of the system and not the individual institutions.
And what did that sanction mean?
What that sanction means is that faculty are advised not to teach in a sanctioned institution, and there are many faculty around the country who will not take a job at an institution or system of institutions that have been sanctioned. And so I think this is going to seriously impact the recruitment of high quality faculty to the institutions in the university system. And I really hope that the university system would work assiduously to clarify that faculty members, after a post-tenure review, still have the opportunity to be heard by peers, and that the burden of proof for denial of tenure rests with the institution and not with the faculty member.
And that sanction really wouldn't come
Dorothy,
into
can I
effect
speak now?
until.
Dorothy, could I speak now? On a more positive note, I've talked to some of the faculty at the University of West Georgia who are aware of these changes that the university system is proposing regarding post-tenure review, and they don't really feel threatened by it. They think it's a relatively minor change, and who knows what could happen down the road, but they are not really seriously concerned about that.
I hope they're correct, but I doubt it.
Well,
I mean, I've just been through too many tenure issues over the years to think that removing the protection of tenure is not going to have deleterious impacts down the road.
well, once again, according to faculty I've talked to, they don't view this as removing the system of tenure. They regard it as a minor modification of the system of post-tenure review. Well, does anyone have any questions for me? Well, Ted, I'm finished now.
Okay, thank you, Mitch. It's a great discussion, and we'll be having it for some time, the tenure. And we'll be dealing with all right, like we've been dealing with Aon for some time too. So now we'll get to best practices. And Greg, has anyone notified you?
Not other than Dave.
Okay, well, let's hear from Dave.
Greg, can you put up the page that I wrote? What I'm suggesting, is a statewide partnership with the Alzheimer's Association, and it nicely dovetails into today's presentation, obviously. Many of you know about the movie Still Alice, and the author is Lisa Genova. And in one of her TED Talks, she says, 85, imagine you're at 85, 50% chance of Alzheimer's. I think it may be Alzheimer's and dementia, but in any event, you know, everybody is kind of in shock about this in the audience. And then if you're lucky enough, you'll be the caregiver. Well, obviously you could be both. So what's our life expectancy? We had a speaker that suggested 20 to 25 years when you retire at 65, if you're well educated, reasonably affluent, etc. So I think already probably most of us are connected and concerned about Alzheimer's. It's a scary disease. So here's a suggestion. The Alzheimer's Association gives programs, and there's a list of them in the third paragraph. We at Georgia Hero have had numerous presentations on the brain, dementia, the one that Ted made about the technology at home, etc. And I imagine many of your own retiree organizations have something similar. So here's an easy way to tie into the Alzheimer's. And the way I would picture a session going, if you invited somebody from Alzheimer's to give a presentation, first what I'd suggest is get somebody local from your own faculty to perhaps spend 10 minutes talking about the general topic and then introduce. So you've got somebody ongoing to sustain the program, and you're not insulting instead of not inviting the experts that you have on campus, but you want to tie in with what I'd call a very deep support group. All the emphasis on caregiving. The Alzheimer's Association has support groups. They've got not only the classes we talk about, but before COVID, they had 8-week classes where you could come, and some of them you'd come as a dyad. So another function that they have is they have the Alzheimer's page that I have down at the bottom here, alz.org, and they've got an 800 line that's 24 hours a day. So let me circle back and say, not only make a presentation, it's very easy to set up a presentation, but try to tie it in with your retiree organization so there's a long term. My guess is it might be every 3 or 4 years you want another presentation on aging and mental difficulties and a follow through. When I brought this up to the Georgia, for Georgia, the main the headquarters, I guess it is, by Perimeter Mall, and I've worked with them now for several years. They were delighted with this suggestion, and they came up with the idea they need presenters, and presenters are called community educators. I'm one of them. And what it's done for me, I love teaching. I love teaching about something important. And indeed, if this is important to you, it's a lovely opportunity. And one of the ways you fight dementia is learning new things. And we've all probably said, if you want to learn something, teach it. So they very much, especially since we're a statewide organization, is to get speakers. It's one of the most enjoyable things that I do, and I think you would too. But it's really the love of teaching and an opportunity to present something important and try to figure out how can you reach the people in your audience. So that's where we are. And I'm hoping a third thing might be, if this does work out on some of our presentations with our members at your own schools, you could open it up to a wider audience. And this is a topic that might bring in people. First, you want to bring in the pre-retirees, and then maybe the community as a whole. But you could be kind of a first stop. At least I learned so much by fellow colleagues that would tell me, oh, do you know about this? Do you know about that? I'll give you one last thing. In one of the support groups, they were talking about taking away the keys from your spouse or something, especially for the men, is what happened. So they took the keys away from the spouse of one of my colleagues in a support group. And he did not wander, but he would go walk the dog. So he couldn't walk the dog because he didn't wander. So he and the dog went and bought a car and drove home. So they do have a sense of themselves, and there's real dignity. And it's so easy to talk over somebody and not include them in because you forget about it. But the right side where emotions are, they last a long time. And I think there's a lot of joy and dignity every day with all the problems. Well, here's a way that Georgia Hero can expand their focus at a very low cost. But I would like to see us move in that direction. We have very similar interests to as the Alzheimer's Association have. It's very casual at this point. Let me know, and I'm going to report back after this meeting to the Alzheimer's Association here. Any questions? What questions do you have? What suggestions do you have?
Yes,
I was muted. Dave, thanks for that information. That was very, very provocative idea, and I think an important one. And I like the organizational support for it, either with the institution or our organization. How does that fit in with support groups? You were in a support group, you mentioned. Is there a place for instance, an individual retirement organization to have a support group? We have book clubs. Why not have an Alzheimer's support group?
I belong to 3 different ones. My wife and I were working with the Brain Center over at Emory, and they give you tremendous amount of support. And there were a couple that were involved. One is they had an 8-week program at Emory. If you were part of MICC, what is it? Interactive Memory Care Center. And so it was so successful, there was an alumni club set up, and every month they would meet for years afterwards. And then as people pass away, then the turnover, so it's almost out of existence now. But the most of the support groups are probably at churches, at any one thing. And the Alzheimer's Association provides the moderators, the leaders for these. So there's a good place. And I don't know whether it would necessarily be at the retiree organization at your school, but you could help do it at the different churches. I'd pick the low-hanging fruit first, and then see if you've got it in your own retiree association or the university as a whole. I'm trying to think of who the partners might be.
Well, I was thinking the more you know about it, the easier it is to approach a colleague who you know has a spouse, partner, and or well, for us, not so much a parent, but I think the more we know, the more easier it is to actually talk to somebody one-on-one. You don't have to have an organization to support somebody, to reach out.
Yes. I think I got my lead to Emory from one of those support groups that the Alzheimer's Association had. And then when I started to realize, comparing it with the doctor we already had, I went to take a look at that doctor, that neurologist's webpage, and there was a zillion things he could do.
Yeah.
I wanted to know about the degenerative brain diseases, obviously. So I switched my practice. I don't think, so we all have at our own schools who is going to be our speaker, et cetera. But wouldn't it be nice if you had something like Dr. Skipper introduce the person from the Alzheimer's, so you got some link between that person and the one introducing. And then when you get to Q&A, you've got 2 people to answer. One's local. I'm trying to think of sustaining to make sure that it goes on. So it's a modest request. Let's see what we can put together. I think it would be fun.
I have a question, if I may, David. Just briefly, what's the training like in terms of length? How long is the training, and where did the training take place?
Most of the training is online, and you get permission to go to a site on the Alzheimer's Association, and there's a list of all the different things you can be trained in, like a first responder, and you're a firefighter. That was one. Well, I just did training for that one for curiosity, but you can imagine trying to get somebody out of a house that won't leave a house, etc. So after you do all that, then they invite you in, and it's not a demanding thing because we have presentation skills. We've done that teaching all the time. So I think, at least I was pleasantly surprised. I spent a lot of time reading and getting ready. And when I went into the evaluation, but I thought it was more both of us together, can you help me? I asked questions. Here's where I'm struggling. I'm trying harder to understand here. Then the next step is, you do the first half and okay, you split up a presentation. And at one time when I was doing one of those, they gave me the easy parts. And I know they were going to send me out if I passed it. And I said, no, I want to try the hard part. I said, no, we can't let you do that. And I thought, what's the logic? Next time I'm completely on my own. And the things I need training on, you won't give me. But that's not how it is in this one with the Alzheimer's. I was quite candid and they were. I don't think you'll have a problem.
Thanks, David.
One of the things is do not give medical advice. Do not give medical advice. And that's so easy to do. And I mean, once you think of it, it's automatic that how could you possibly give medical advice? But you'll get those questions all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. I can attest from personal experience several times in my life the value of support groups. And another place that I've found support groups for various reasons is hospitals. It's not the medical part of the hospital or anything like that, but they have social workers and other things, and they're often community groups that are organized by hospitals that are exactly the people that I wanted to meet and talk to and learn from and have my feelings validated, as you say, and stuff like that. So I think it's a wonderful idea also.
And this is Gretchen. I just wanted to say, Dave, how good to hear that you got such excellent support through the Brain Health Center at Emory. And I wanted to mention, as some of you may know, that Alan Levy, who was chair of neurology at Emory for so long, has transitioned into a new role within the Brain Health Center. They've now got a research operation that he's heading up that's called the Brain Health Personalized Medicine Institute. And again, a research program. And I'd say, visit the website for the Brain Health Center and see what's going on and what support you can get for yourself and loved ones.
If I could mention, there's two lists to get on. One is the Emory one. They have an aging study. In fact, I had to renew mine this week and update what it is so that to get on medical studies. And the Alzheimer's group is called Trial Match. And you can find it easily on the Alzheimer's page, et cetera. But the Trial Match and the research going on in this area, after more than 100 years, the last 10 years, the research has just gone up incredibly. So they need people like you, and you're going to get better medical treatment if you're in a study. No question about that.
And it was Alan Levy that recommended the woman in the Coulter Institute, Annabelle Singer. And again, what was so wonderful about that presentation, and those of you interested in scheduling a presentation, might want to get in touch with her and her other researchers who are doing a study that you might want to join. But because it's treatment for, it's not just research into causes of and, diagnosis of, and I mean, it's treatment that actually seems to be having very positive effects.
I do want to mention, when someone was mentioning or talking about the program with Emory and Georgia Tech with individuals that were volunteering to participate, that was a research project, and there was an experimental group, and there's also a control group. So you may not be getting medical treatment if you are with the placebo group. And so when you volunteer to do these studies, ask a lot of questions to make sure that you're participating in something that you would benefit from.
One of the things I think what Dorothy says, you got to realize there's a good chance you might be in a placebo group, but you're also going to be examined every so often to make sure what's happening to you. And I think that would be more frequent than I would normally see the doctor. So even if I'm in the placebo group, if I might mention, there's one other thing the Brain Center does every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, I think. 2 o'clock. They have a web thing that goes over Alzheimer's, exercise, etc. And I think it's called Brain Talk. And I get the emails all the time. I don't remember it. I'll see how I can feed it into the system, that link. I'm finished.
Thank you all. Are there any other comments? It's a wonderful discussion.
I have a question, actually. This is Gretchen again about best practices. Do we have on the Georgia Hero website an actual collection of documents about best practices at our various institutions? It seems to me that Emory's turned some in. I think we've all turned some in over the years, and we may have an archive now. I'm asking because I thought the people who spoke as we started the program today about various activities or programs to memorialize retired faculty and staff that we've lost. And you'll remember, I think we were all here. We had Martha talk about what Clayton does, and Dorothy talk about what Kennesaw does, and Ann talk about what West Georgia does. And all that seemed like something we at Emory might want to adopt or create versions of. And I wanted to encourage them to turn in descriptions of those best practices if we've got a place to put them.
I'm not current on the website. I can't be sure whether it's there or not. Is Carol? I think not available.
Carol had to leave to go to another meeting.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, I guess we can all look and see, but we always ask about best practices, and I'm pretty sure maybe they're just in the minutes, but I'm pretty sure people have been invited to turn in descriptions.
They're for sure in the minutes.
Yeah, but I would hope, well, if we haven't, we can always start, right, to collect descriptions of best practices and archive them on the website.
Well, Gretchen, there is a resources page.
Yeah, maybe that's where they are. I haven't looked at it lately, but
I don't think they're there yet, but it's a wonderful idea. to some extent, it goes back to what I was saying about in-person meetings and paper notes. You know, we passed all those out, and I think I have a binder full of best
This is
practices.
what I have.
Yeah.
Always notes.
But there were handouts. There were paper handouts.
Yes.
So those,
That's right.
yeah, those exist somewhere, and if necessary, they can be scanned and you know, digitized again. So I think it's a great idea. There's also the possibility of a blog on that resources page. And of course, with a blog, we could have threads, we could have discussions, and, you know, people could, if they didn't have something ready to post as a handout or a report or an article, you know, a good discussion is also good.
Well, if anybody could make a blog happen, it would be our webmaster, Carol Pope.
Right.
Not here with us at the moment. Again, as Grace said, I guess she had to leave for another meeting, but she can do anything, I believe.
She's a wonderful support. Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see that it's 12:15, and speaking of Carol, she's the one who wrote that agenda that had our adjournment at 12:15. I'm certainly willing to stay a few more minutes and hear anyone who would like to add anything to our meeting. It's been a very good experience for me.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.